What is up, guys? It is Quinn here, back with another video, and today I'm going to be doing a mock draft using the Fantasy Pros Draft Wizard. This is going to be a 12-team league, PPR scoring, and we're going to be drafting from the number 9 spot. The roster setup is going to be 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, 2 flex spots, and then we're rolling with a 6-person bench. So let's jump into the draft. So with the first 8 picks of the draft, we saw a bunch of running backs come off the board. Jonathan Taylor, Austin Eckler, McCaffrey, Derrick Henry. Then we saw Kupp go at the 105. Cook and Najee went at the 106 and the 107. And then Justin Jefferson went at the 108. It would have been awesome if Justin Jefferson fell to us there at the 109. Unfortunately, he did not. So honestly, with this pick, I feel like the idea is pretty clear here. I think a lot of the top running backs, like the first round quality running backs, are off the board, probably with the exception of like DeAndre Swift late first. Same thing with Joe Mixon. Obviously, we're not going quarterback. I'm not drafting Travis Kelce in the first round. So that really leaves us with one position here, and that is the wide receiver position. And the top 3 players would be Jamar Chase, Stephon Diggs, and Devontae Adams. In my opinion, out of those players, there was one clear top option, and that is Jamar Chase. I actually feel like I'm a little bit lower on Jamar Chase than consensus. He's basically like my 7th overall player. I know a lot of people have him in their top 5. He's kind of moving towards that direction for me. So getting him here at the 109 is crazy value. The man had a historic rookie season. I feel like he's only going to build on that crazy 2021 season. You know, Joe Burrow another year back off that ACL. T. Higgins is there. The offense as a whole is going to be putting up a ton of points. You also have major upgrades on the offensive line. So I think Jamar Chase is a really strong pick here in like the later first round. So now let's see who is going to be available for us in the second. Looking at the draft board, we saw Kelce, Mixon, and Swift finish up the first round. And then to start off the second, we saw Javonte Williams, Stephon Diggs, and Devontae Adams. So if either Diggs or Devontae Adams fell to me there, I would have had to go with one of those guys. But now we are up at the 204. Let's see who's available. Quarterback, definitely not interested. At tight end, maybe you could go Mark Andrews here. For me, it's too early for Andrews. I'd be going, mid, late second on Mark. And then the question really comes down to, am I going CeeDee Lamb here? Or am I going with a guy like Aaron Jones, Barkley, or Leonard Fournette? This is honestly a tough call. I've been probably much lower on CeeDee Lamb than consensus. Basically, the entire offseason, I was lower on him heading into last year. But I mean, everything with the Cowboys just screams that he's going to get an insane amount of volume. With Michael Gallup likely not being ready week 1, James Washington fractures his foot. It really just seems like the path, for success for CeeDee Lamb is totally there. But I think I'm going to go with the running back position at this pick. I just think there's going to be, solid values in the later third round at wide receiver I can take advantage of. But I think at that point, the running back position is probably going to be pretty dried up, except for guys like Elliott, Montgomery, Akers, who are players I'm just not interested in targeting at that price. So now the question comes down to, is it Aaron Jones, Saquon Barkley, or Leonard Fournette? These 3 players are all in a tier for me. This is PPR scoring. All these players are pretty solid in that format. I think I'm going to go with Saquon Barkley. If you would prefer Aaron Jones or Fournette, I'm not going to argue with you. I think those are solid options also. For me, I just think if you're looking at like elite ceiling, Saquon Barkley is that guy, but you really can't go wrong. If I was in 3 different drafts, I might go with Jones in one, Saquon in another, and then Lenny in the third. They're that close in my opinion. So a ton of players came off the board in the second and then third round. So we saw a decent amount of running backs go in the second. In the third, more wide receivers with some running backs thrown in there. Gibson in the third is wild. Connor in the third makes sense. Zeke at the 308. Earlier than I would take him, but you're probably going to see him go there in a lot of drafts. So now let's see who's going to be on the board for us. Through 2 rounds, we have Jamar Chase and Saquon Barkley. So just looking at the running backs here, I already talked about it. Not interested in Montgomery or Cam Akers. I would be interested in ETN or Breece Hall in the 4th round. So we'll see if they're available to us. At wide receiver, we're looking at T. Higgins, Michael Pittman, Deontay Johnson. At this point in the draft, I really like Higgins, Pittman, and Deontay Johnson at this price. Just making sure Mark Andrews came off the board. He did. We could be considering Kyle Pitts here, but in my opinion, T. Higgins still being on the board, he's someone I'd be willing to take late second round. He's someone I'm all over if I'm picking at like the 2-3 turn. So in my opinion, he's the clear pick here. Honestly, I didn't even remember how I had Jamar Chase, even though I just said it. I'm fine stacking these guys. This is going to be an elite offense. They're both going to be feasting. So I'm not going to be scared away by the stack. We're just going to put the two Bengals wide receivers together, pair them with Saquon Barkley. I really, really like the start to this one. So now we're going to be picking in the fourth round. Hopefully those running backs I was talking about didn't come off the board. So we saw wide receivers, Pittman, Deontay Johnson, and then Kyle Pitts go off the board, and then Mike Williams, Brandon Cooks, and David Montgomery. So, we're not going to go tight end because Kyle Pitts got picked. We're probably not going wide receiver because the two guys I liked, Pittman and Deontay, are off the board. But now we can circle back to the running back position and look at Travis Etienne or Breece Hall. So these players are both very, very close together in my rankings. If I remember correctly, I think I picked Travis Etienne in the last mock draft I did. So I'm going to go with Breece Hall here. They're totally back-to-back in my ranks. So, really you're going either way. I've had a few tough calls already with running backs, with the Saquon pick. It's the same thing here. I want to have like an equal number of shares of Breece Hall and Travis Etienne. So I'm going to go with Breece Hall here. If you like Etienne, totally cool with that. I just don't want to pick a guy like Akers in the fourth round, especially early fourth round. I just think he comes with a lot of risk. You could go wide receiver here if you don't really like, the Breece Hall pick. You're not invested in him. For me, I like the kind of like the unknown upside here. He could be the workhorse of this team and finish as like a, mid-tier RB1. You're obviously just getting him at a discount because we don't know what the workload is going to be. I love him as a prospect, and I think he's going to smash this year. I'm also just a little bit higher on the Jets offense than consensus, so I'm willing to throw some darts, at that team as a whole. So through 4 rounds, we have Saquon, Breece Hall, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. Feeling pretty solid about that start to this draft. To finish out the 4th round, we saw a few quarterbacks go off, Mahomes and Herbert, a few running backs, Jacobs, Akers, Etienne, some wide receivers, Waddle, Metcalf, McLaurin, and then the 5th round is filled with wide receivers, and then Darren Waller and George Kittle. If either Waller or Kittle fell to us, that would have been a smash pick here at the 509, but they are not. I still think it's probably too early to go quarterback. I just don't think guys like Josh Allen, even Mahomes, should be going multiple rounds ahead of Lamar and Kyler, or even a guy like Jalen Hurts. So looking at the running back position, really not interested in anything here. Not paying 5th round for Mitchell. Dobbins maybe isn't the worst pick, but I'm just not a huge fan of it coming off that ACL. And then we get into like Dylan, Sanders, CEH. Not happening here in the 5th round. Already talked about kind of fading the quarterback position. Tight end, I'm not going Dalton Schultz in the 5th or even the 6th, really. So now we shift our focus over to the wide receiver position. And there are honestly a few players here that I really like, but one really sticks out to me, and that is Marquis Brown. I do believe he was just arrested, which definitely is not ideal, but I think it was for speeding, so I don't think that's going to be like a huge thing heading into the season. I really like Marquis Brown here. He's someone who I think should definitely be going in the 4th round, so getting him here in the 5th is nice. I think he pairs super well with Kyler Murray. We could potentially be getting that stack in the 6th round. Maybe we go after the Burrow stack, just get that entire Bengals offense minus Joe Mixon. But either way, Marquise Brown is a great option here. And I also think we're going to have some decent choices in the 6th round with either Mooney or Bateman, maybe Amari Cooper, but still some uncertainty with that Watson suspension. The NFL's appealing it, all of that. So Marquise Brown is going to be the pick here, going in our flex spot. And then we'll see what we can do at the quarterback position if maybe we want to kind of make a Kyler Marquise Brown stack. So let's see who came off the board. We saw Lamar go off, so he's off the table. Mitchell, Mooney, Gabe Davis, Amari Cooper, and J.K. Dobbins. So this is putting us in an interesting spot here. We could definitely go Kyler Murray. That's not something I'm opposed to. I do think we may find some quarterback value later on in the draft, but we're also kind of in the spot where it looks like we're not going to have an elite tight end. I mean, it doesn't look like it. We're not going to have an elite tight end because the top 5 are off the board. So maybe we do want to go elite at the quarterback position. The only reason why I'm hesitant to do that is just because I really like Rashad Bateman in the 6th round. So in my opinion, this pick is definitely between Kyler Murray and Rashad Bateman. A part of me wants to go Kyler, but I feel like Rashad Bateman filling out our last flex spot is probably the better option here. I also think there's a chance that Jalen Hurts falls to us in the 7th round. And then even if he doesn't, we're looking at other solid options like Burrow, Brady, Russ. Not a huge fan of Dak, but Stafford, and then Trey Lance is always my high upside pick, later on. So we're going to go with Bateman. If you want to go with Kyler here, I totally support it. It's just something where I really like Bateman and probably value him just a little bit higher. So he's going to be our wide receiver 4. Really like our kind of situation here. We have teammates Chase and Higgins, and then former teammates Marquis Brown and Rashad Bateman. So let's take a look at what happened in the 6th and 7th round. Basically a bunch of wide receivers. We actually did see a few quarterbacks come off the board. Kyler, Burrow, and then Brady. So Hurts actually did not get picked, which is sweet news for us. We also saw Schultz and Hawkinson come off the board. So with the 7th pick, looking at the teams in front of us, only one of them has picked a quarterback, so I don't think I can risk, letting Jalen Hurts get picked in the 7-11 or the 7-12. So I think he's going to be the guy here unless I'm missing something at another position. Running back, Dylan, Sanders, Hunt. Nope. Wide receivers, I think we just saw a fall off in that tier. Woods, Lazard, Tony. Treylon Burks is someone I'm definitely interested in, but that would be in the next round. And then quarterbacks, Jalen Hurts is the guy. This is going to be a clear pick for me. If you're getting Jalen Hurts in the 7th round, I just think that's crazy. The man was a stud last year for fantasy. Remember, people don't like to separate fantasy from real life. Real life, he might not have been a great quarterback. Fantasy, he was a mid-tier QB1 on a horrible offense. Now he gets A.J. Brown. You have Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert. This is going to be a decent offense, much better weapons. Jalen Hurts is going to be a stud for fantasy football. And so I love snagging him as our QB1. And it really makes me feel good about that Bateman pick because I'd much rather have Hurts and Bateman than go after, get Kyler and then be picking like Allen Lazard or Kadarius Toney. We could have gone Treylon Burks, but you know what I'm saying here. So now looking at our lineup, the only starting spot that is not filled out is our tight end position. This is kind of gearing up to look like a double hero RB build where we have 2 running backs that I think are studs, and then we're hitting the other positions a ton. I don't see myself going a ton of running backs, at least in the next 1 or 2 rounds, just looking at how this ADP typically plays out. So let's look at who's available here. Remember, with 2 flex spots, I want at least 5 or 6 wide receivers that I feel like are startable. So quarterback, we're just basically out on until maybe the last round, or there's some insane value. Tight end, we're interested, but I'm not a huge Goddard fan, so I'd much rather wait, snag one of these later round options, maybe draft 2 of them to, see if one of them hits. Running back, you could go Hunt or Edmonds here. I'm just not going to be doing it. Actually, Tony Pollard could be an option. He is interesting, but wide receiver, I just don't really think I can pass on Treylon Burks here. Some of you guys may prefer Lazard or Kadarius Toney. For me, I want the rookie wide receiver that I think could be the best rookie this year. I think London is probably the best bet, but I feel like Treylon Burks is right up there. I feel like he's at this discount because he came in a little out of shape. Not a great first impression, but I still think, we saw him dominate in college. Mid first round draft pick. I think he's set up to do very well. Most people comped him to A.J. Brown, filling into that role. So I do like him there, especially where did we get him? It was the 8th or 9th round. I like the value on that. So now with this next pick, we're going in the 9th round. We actually saw a ton of running backs come off the board. A little bit unfortunate because we might have wanted to go with a running back there because Hunt, Harris, Penny, Edmonds, Patterson, Walker, Pollard, Carter, Gordon, all those dudes are off the board. So let's see what we've got going on here. No tight ends were picked, so we could look at the tight end position. Definitely an option here. Maybe a stack with Goddard and Hurts. I'm not really a huge Goddard guy, but I mean, him falling this late makes him an interesting option. Wide receiver, Lazard has fallen a little bit. He's someone to keep an eye on. I do have 5 wide receivers, so I don't know if that's the play. At running back, I'd probably be going Ramondre Stevenson here. Some rumblings that he could potentially compete with Damian Harris to be the RB1. That is interesting. James Cook would be the next guy, and then I think there's a big fall off to Hines, Madison, McKissick, Rojo. So maybe we go running back. Let's see what the teams after us have going on, because if they have picked tight ends, it makes me feel a little bit better. All right, so only one of them has not picked a tight end. I would assume that they'd be going with Goddard with this pick. So that is something to consider. Both of these teams, or all 3 of these teams, have 3 running backs. So running backs could totally be in play with this pick. This is a tough call. I think I'm going to go after Ramondre here. Even though Goddard would be a value, I'm not a massive fan of him. And I think I'd be totally comfortable taking Ertz in the 10th round, or even waiting another round and snagging Dawson Knox. And then if I miss out on Knox, then I'm cool stacking like a Komet Henry duo, throw an Alberto in there, something like that. So we're going to go Ramondre Stevenson here. Think he's a solid RB3 when you're looking at the rest of our roster. Obviously he's not going to slot in as a flex, but if there's an injury to Damian Harris, he definitely becomes a viable option. So let's see what went down back end of the 9th, start of the 10th round. All right, so let's see if this team picked a tight end. Wow, they're just going, late round tight end, I guess, because we see James Cook, Lazard, Michael Gallup get picked, then Dameon Pierce, Jacoby Myers, and Tyler Boyd. So I feel like even though I'm not a huge Dallas Goedert guy, he has got to be the pick here. The value is just too good. He's even fallen past where I have him ranked, and I feel like I'm way lower on him than consensus. So just check the other positions to make sure. Quarterback, we're good. Running back, no shot. I'm taking Naheem Hines or Madison over Goddard. Wide receiver, we're kind of in this gross point. Sky Moore is a stud there, but I do need a tight end, and I feel like Goddard is definitely going to go off the board. So I'll pass on Sky Moore because I'm pretty set at the wide receiver position. Goddard is going to fill out our starting lineup of Hurts, Barkley, Hall, Chase, Higgins, Goddard, Marquis Brown, and then Bateman. So let's take a look at the draft board again, see what's going on there. All right, so we saw runs at both running back and tight end. So in the 10th round, basically after our Goddard pick, every pick but one was Landry. I don't know why I said Goddard weird. I feel like I messed that up. But every pick after Goddard was a running back except for Landry. And then in the 11th round, in the first, 8 picks, 4 tight ends went off the board. Some people were going after their second tight end, this Schultz-Ertz, duo here. So now we are up here with the 1109. And we could go with a few different spots here. We're pretty good at quarterback and tight end. Probably not going to be hitting those right now. I don't even know if I mentioned, but Hurts and Goddard is a decent stack there also. So right now we're looking at 5 wide receivers. I'm cool having 6 playable guys, but I'm not going to force it. Running back right now, we have 3 RBs. I probably want to draft at least 2 more running backs before this draft is over. I feel like 2 is probably the right number. So looking at the potential options, Gainwell is interesting. He's someone who's received a lot of positive reports out of camp. He's the number 2 there. Also, ties into our Eagles players, which is interesting. Jamal Williams here, not super intriguing. Khalil Herbert is a nice David Montgomery handcuff. Tyler Algier is someone I like. Also, guys, when I'm talking about the stacks, it's something you keep in mind, when you're drafting, but it's not something where I'm like passing up a ton of value to get a stack. I'm kind of neutral on it. I understand the benefits. If both players bust, your week likely isn't going to be great. So it's not something that I'm avoiding. It's also not something I'm going after where I'm like, really like this player better, but this dude's on the same team. Just kind of want to put that out there because I do feel like I've mentioned it a few times, but we do have it. Just something to point out, but not something that I'm like, overreacting to. So back to the pick here. Gainwell is interesting. Algier is also interesting. Wide receiver, we've got Marquez Valdes-Scantling, honestly, could be the selection here. I'm not super high on him, but going as, wide receiver 54, that is a value just given the positive reports out of camp. So he is an option. Wide receiver, Galladay and Rondale Moore could also be picks. 2 players I'm not overly high on, but I could understand the appeal. So this is actually a pretty tough call between going running back or wide receiver. I think I may go with MVS here just because I'm confident that one of these running backs I like, are going to fall to us in the 12th, whereas MVS is seemingly, the best wide receiver available, at least according to Fantasy Pros ADP. So let's snag MVS here. Don't think I'm going to have a ton of shares of him, but at this price, I'm willing to buy in. And then we will see who went off the board to see if any of our running backs are available. So hopefully a lot of running backs did not come off. It looks like a lot of running backs came off. That is not ideal. Gainwell, Algier, Mack, and Jamal Williams. So a few of those guys we were looking at, not great, but we'll take a look at the running back position again. So I think there may be one guy we didn't mention. All right, so Khalil Herbert would probably be the option here. I honestly really like Khalil Herbert. I think he's a very talented back, filled in very well for David Montgomery last season. Montgomery's a guy who's not overly impressive. think Herbert could get some week-to-week work. Probably not enough to be startable, but I think is a really strong handcuff if David Montgomery goes down. So he's going to be the selection here. He's going to be our RB4. So we're looking for one more running back in the next 2 rounds, and we'll see how that shakes out. Back to the draft board. A ton of players got picked here. So it was basically entirely running backs and tight ends with 2 wide receivers thrown in there. Not exactly great for our next running back pick, especially because my guy Ty Davis Price, who normally goes super late, was taken. So this will be an interesting next selection. I feel like it's rare where teams just hammer running backs like this, but it might just be something with the Fantasy Pros draft wizard. Trey Lance still available. That is insane. Don't know if I want to go with him here. All right, looking at our team, let's just kind of make a game plan for these last 2 picks. Hurts at quarterback, I feel confident. I do like Lance. He's someone, I think I have him as like my QB7, QB8, somewhere in there. So way high on Lance. Running backs, Barkley, Hall, Stevenson, Khalil Herbert. I feel good with those guys, but I do want one more. Honestly, wide receiver, we might just want to pack it in here because we have Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Marquis Brown, Rashad Bateman. I feel very confident starting all 4 of those guys. And then I also feel confident with Treylon Burks. And then MVS is interesting. At this point, are any of these guys going to be cracking my lineup between Chark, Robbie Anderson, Corey Davis, McCole Hardman? I'm just not overly confident with any of these guys. Ooh, Julio Jones is way down there. All right, so what I was going to be suggesting before I saw Julio was that I was going to say we go 1 running back, or we go Trey Lance, and then we snag a running back. But there's no way I can pass up on Julio Jones here. I'm guessing the ADP is kind of just not updated from him signing with the Bucs. But the potential wide receiver 3 for Tom Brady, the role Antonio Brown played with them last year, it's valuable. Even if he's washed, even if people think he's injury prone, at this point, what is this, pick 153? There is 0 risk here. When he played with the Falcons, last year with the Titans, that was an adventure, in and out of the lineup all the time. But in his last season with the Falcons, he didn't play a full season, but when he was on the field, the man was still the same dude. He's not going to be playing 80-90% of the snaps. He's going to be much closer to 50. I think he can find a nice role here with the Buccaneers. So Julio's the pick, and then we don't even really need to see who was selected because we need to hit the running back position. 6 wide receivers. I'd like to snag a 5th running back. So we've got Boston Scott, Samaje Perine, Zamir White, Damian Williams. All right, I think the guy here is going to be Dearness Johnson, and this is why you may be like, why are we drafting an RB3 on the Browns? But there is some, rumors, skepticism that Kareem Hunt could be released as a cap, a cap thing for the Browns. And if that happens, Dearness Johnson would step up and be the RB2. We know the Browns like to run 2 running backs, so if he doesn't get released, we just drop Dearness Johnson, snag another handcuff, potentially a guy like Samaje Perine. Joe Mixon's back up. Maybe, who else we got going on here? Not a ton of other solid options, so Dearness Johnson would be the guy. Maybe a Damian Williams who could win out as the RB2 behind Patterson. But Johnson is going to be the pick right now. Let's take a look at our final roster. We're going to get a grade. The grade really does not matter because it just grades how well you followed their ADP. We're not a huge fan of their ADP, so let's see. All right, they gave us a 78. I think this team is much better than that. Jalen Hurts at quarterback, Saquon Barkley and Breece Hall at running backs, Jamar Chase and Higgins at the wide receiver spots, Dallas Goedert at tight end. We go Marquise Brown and Rashad Bateman in the flexes, and then Burks, Ramondre Stevenson, MVS, Khalil Herbert, Julio Jones, and Dearness Johnson as our bench. Honestly, I really like this team. I typically don't like drafting from the 9 spot. I think we kind of lucked out with Jamar Chase. 2nd round pick, we were probably reaching a little bit for Saquon in terms of ADP, but that's the player I like there. Then going 3rd, 4th round, who do we go with? Higgins was a steal. Breece Hall is about where you're going to see him picked. And then from then on, I feel like we made some solid value selections. So let me know what you guys think about this team. Drop, your comments down below in the comment section. If you want me to do specific draft settings, I'll try to get to those also, team roster constructions, specific scoring, all of that stuff. Thank you all for stopping by. If you stayed through the end, thank you. Hit that like button if you enjoyed, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one.